Hello guys, welcome back to Custom Gamer. My name is Daz and today I'm going to be answering your questions which you have submitted from let's see, Twitter, email, YouTube private message, all these things. So you can get a hold of me at TDDaz on Twitter, or you can send an email to customgamerqa@gmail.com, or you can just send a message to me over Facebook, and I will try and answer as many as I can per episode. So today we've got two questions because I went a bit overboard on one of them, so please just indulge me on this one, I guess, and we'll have a longer one next week. Also, I've had a lot of problems with my PC. One of my hard drives died, so I've had to re-download my Steam collection, etc, etc. I've been messing around with that most of the week, so it's kind of put this episode behind track, so I apologise for that. I will hopefully get one of these out each week. Keep sending in your questions so that I've got stuff to answer, of course. If not, I can always make up questions to things I think people might want to know. Okay, so let's get on with this. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Okay, so our first question from David Lundvall over Twitter asks, how do I kill/destroy enemies already spawned from an NPC maker? I've tried kill and kill hierarchy with no luck. Okay, so here's my little test map. As you can see, we've got our template Combine Soldier right there. Here he is. So this is our template enemy that we're going to be spawning copies of from this NPC maker. And all these other entities I've got is just for triggering. It's nothing too special. So this one here, when I stand on that, it kills all the enemy. Sorry, it spawns a Combine NPC, so it just triggers the NPC maker. And when I stand on this one, it activates the hurt trigger, which is what I'm going to talk about next, which is the huge trigger covering everything. This is a trigger hurt, and it does 1000 damage to anything it touches, usually. Obviously we want to change that behaviour. So as you can see, I've got it set to target NPCs. But we don't want it to kill all the NPCs, we only want it to kill certain NPCs. So we've got to use a filter entity, which is here. This is the name of the filter entity you have to put in here. And we'll have a look at the filter entity now to show you how to set it up and what it does. So there are lots of different filter entities available, as you can see here. So you can filter out lots of different things. We want to filter out a certain class of entity, so we use this filter activator class. In the filter description, you want to type in the name of the entity that you want to filter by. So in this case, it's NPC Combine Soldier S, which means that only entities of that type will trigger this hurt trigger. Sorry, will be affected by this hurt trigger. Bleh. English is hard, apparently. So what this does is, once you enter the filter name and the trigger hurt, it means that the trigger hurt will only kill that Combine and nothing else, so the player will be unaffected, and any other type of enemies will be unaffected, which is perfect. So this is one way to kill off enemies spawned by an NPC maker. Obviously it's not going to work in 100% of cases, because it will kill every single entity of that type that it touches. So here we are, we're just setting some more settings on the trigger. As you can see here, I've got exclamation mark activator. So when the trigger hurts something, it targets the activator, which in this case will be the Combine NPC, as that's what triggered the hurt trigger. And we're going to set it to kill that entity. So you can do exclamation mark activator. That'll work on just about anything. And it's a great way to target the activator of things. So let's have a look in the game. So we want to stand on the orange platform to trigger the NPC maker, and then we tread on the white one to activate the kill trigger. And as we're setting up to trigger the kill command on the activator, it just removes him straight away with no fuss. Now maybe you do want the Combines to just fall over and die, so you can just remove the kill activator and the trigger will do its damage. Obviously, as it's doing 1000 damage, it's throwing them quite away. So that's two different ways of achieving that goal. And we've got a bunch of dead Combine. Alright, now an email question from Joseph Williams. He says, you quite often criticise maps for being linear or not having secret areas for the player to explore. As far as I understand it, rewarding exploration or not, as the case may be, is just a tool for setting the pace of a map. Am I missing something? Okay, so the topic of exploration in level design and game design is fairly huge, so I'll give it a stab and see if I can cover the major points. So let's first have a look at what exploration does in games, what it gives the player. So, in my opinion, of course, first of all, it brings the player into the world. So it allows freedom of movement, there's no invisible walls or clipping brushes stopping you from going places you can see. I'm sure you've all played games where there's something fantastic in the distance and you walk towards it and you just can't go there. And it's really frustrating. I'm sure you've all seen that a couple of times. A good example is Rage from id Software. Really fun game, enjoyed the hell out of it, but it was clipped to buggery. You couldn't really go anywhere that the designers didn't want you to, including jumping over small railings in some of the maps. It was quite horrendous actually. But yeah, it brings the player into the world. If the player can feel that they can explore on their own terms and go places that they can see, then it gives a lot of freedom to them that way, and it really helps, I feel. So what else does it do? It enriches interactivity. If only in the player's head rather than in the game world. They feel that they're connected to the world, that they can go and explore and find things that perhaps they would have totally missed otherwise. And it's that feeling of finding things that other people won't see that gives a sense of reward to it. I mean, it doesn't even have to be something that increases the player's power in any way. It could just be a lore object or something that gives a bit of backstory to the world, or just a little bit of incidental storytelling. Kind of like in Skyrim, where you just come across various objects in the world, and there's no real point to it. It just tells a little story, and maybe you're the only person that's seen this, and obviously that's highly unlikely. There's millions of people playing Skyrim, but the point is there that you found this, maybe other people haven't, and you can go and tell these stories to people, and they won't have seen it, and they'll be interested to hear what you found. Okay, what else can we think about? Let's see here. I suppose it rewards players' interest in the world as well. If you've created a game world that's compelling enough for players to actually give a damn and want to find out more about it, either through story or just exploring the environments, then that's very powerful to use as a level designer. You can actually coax players around your map and encourage them to explore by placing things in the environment that perhaps aren't obvious for how to get to, and it forces exploration from the player. And then it gives them that reward when they find it, and they come across that story object or lore object, etc., etc. Now, probably the main reason is it reduces the feeling of linearity. Now, linearity gets thrown around a lot by gamers on forums and everything. Oh, this game was linear, it was terrible, blah, herpy derpy derp, right? And it's actually fairly misused by a lot of people. Whereas people say, oh, linear games are bad. Now, Half-Life 2 was a linear game. It was. You go from A to B, you would never really go back on yourself. Is Half-Life 2 a bad game? I certainly don't think so. What people generally latch onto is that by linear they mean boring, right? There's this kind of disconnect between linear meaning going from point A to B and never having any deviation from that, with A to B being boring, so they just associate it that way. And linear games can be boring, or they can be fantastic, like Half-Life 2. It hides the linearity in a very, very, very clever way by giving you lots of perceived choice, even though really there isn't much. But the way it rewards exploration by putting lots of ammo crates in the world that you can find. There are a couple of incidental story bits that you can find with it exploring. kind of usually involving things like corpses and things like that. And if we look back a bit in history, things like Doom and Quake, secret areas, they're actually, in the UI. When you complete a level, it tells you how many secrets you found. And you think, oh man, I missed a couple, I want to go back and, find them. And it makes you search your environment to find these secrets. And even in like Doom and Quake and other games, there are entire levels that you won't play unless you find the secret area to, trigger the level change. And this doesn't happen so much in newer games. So it brings me on to part 2 of answering this question, is why are a lot of modern games so linear, and what happened to non-linearity in games? Now, this isn't to say that all modern games are just go from A to B and there's nothing else to do. That's totally wrong, of course. We can just look at, let's think, Deus Ex Human Revolution, completely non-linear first-person game, and it's fantastic. So, there are exceptions to this rule, but generally, level design in games has got a little bit simpler over the years. And there's a couple of reasons for this. So, game budgets is the first one to bring up. Now, when I say budgets, I kind of mean two different things. There's obviously there's a memory budget, especially on the consoles, where if you think about all the detail that goes into modern console games and PC games, you can only fit so much in memory, and when a memory budget is exceeded, the first thing to get cut are things like cubby holes with secrets, little Easter egg things that not maybe everyone won't see. These are the first things that people think, right, this level's over budget, we'll just cut some non-essential bits like the secret cupboard. And there we are, that's how we went under budget again. And the other thing is obviously the monetary budget of games. So generally it's not a very accurate portrayal, but kind of the cost per square inch of game world, if you like. Obviously you have to pay artists, level designers, storyboarders, audio guys to create this game world, and every single part of it has to be built, lit, populated with enemies, scripted, and generally the less stuff there is to do, the quicker you can do it, right? And with release dates coming up, people like to keep it simple. The amount of money on the line, and potentially a whole company as well, so it's not easy to see that. So with that said, the difference between, a AAA game studio creating a level and a modder on his own time creating a level is that the modder's only budget is his or her time, which means you can add these things, and there is there's nothing to worry about doing that. You can add multiple paths, you can add all these secret areas, you can add entire secret levels. It's going to take you longer to make, sure, but you can do it, and it's going to make your map, mod, game, whatever you're making, a hell of a lot better for it. So, again, going back to the budget thing, old school versus new school. So, in the old school level design, we're talking Doom, Quake, that kind of era, you had secret areas, you had secret levels, and you had lots and lots of non-linearity in the levels. So there's lots of multi-story areas, lots of areas where you can kind of choose which way to go, lots of ways to jump up and around the level to get to different places, all these kinds of things. And in the new school kind of design space, you have, instead of secrets, you have achievements, which if you think about it, they're kind of similar. A secret rewards you for doing something special, in this case usually exploration. Achievement does the same kind of thing, but the requirements are different. So you can get an achievement for exploring, sure. You can get an achievement for doing something special in the game, which is what it's most commonly about, right? And achievements are a lot easier to implement than secret areas. They take a lot less memory, they generally only need a small graphic for the UI, and a small hook in the code to activate them, of course. So it's very, very easy to do rather than secret areas, which take a lot of developer time, and which could possibly introduce bugs, and you have to light them, you have to do all this stuff and trigger them up, and yeah. So, and I think the other thing that's kind of hurt exploration in games is the kind of mass market appeal that games have to apply to these days. With the game budgets what they are, you have to sell a pretty obscene amount of copies to make a profit in games these days, which is why it's such a risky business. So if you have let's pick a recent game, Mass Effect 3. Now, sure, you can pick what planet to go to and what mission to do and that, so yeah, that's great, but when you're actually in a mission, it's completely linear. You go from A to B, and generally there's one corridor to go down, and then you'll have a fight in a room, and then a door will unlock, and there's another corridor to go down, and it's completely linear. It really is. And with a mass market game like Mass Effect, these easy to follow levels are there so that everyone can find their way to the end, basically. Now, that's extremely cynical, of course. I'm sure it's not that simple, but that's just me being British, I guess. But I think the point is fairly valid. Obviously, it's not going to be for every single game, but generally, if you compare any level from Quake with any level from modern FPS, even games from the same company, so if you compare a Quake level to a level from Rage, the Rage level is extremely simple to navigate. It's generally A to B, with not a lot of backtracking or keys to open doors or puzzles and secret areas and all this stuff. The Rage level is extremely simple in their layout, whereas Quake levels can be extremely non-simple. There's lots of multi-leveled areas and kind of keys and water areas that you can swim in and all this stuff. So, man, have I gone off topic? I think I have. So, well, hopefully I answered your questions somewhere in this mess. Wow, I've been talking for a while, so I think we'll end it here. Thank you for listening, guys. I hope you found this interesting. Keep sending in those questions, and I'll make sure to answer a whole lot more of them next week. Hopefully things will be back to normal then, and I'll be able to put a good episode out for you guys. Alright, cheers, I'll see you later.